everything you bought this week. The gas in your car, the cooking oil in your kitchen, the plastic wrap in your grocery drawer. All of it ran through a strip of water 21 miles wide. You've probably never heard of it. Most people haven't. But right now, rising tensions in the Middle East are threatening to close that waterway. And when it closes, your wallet feels it, long before the news ever explains why. This isn't really a story about oil. It's a story about how one block channel, in a part of the world most Americans couldn't find on a map, quietly raises the price of your tacos, your medicine, your electric bill, and the plastic fork you just threw away. Stay with me, because once you see how this 21-mile choke point works, you'll have a kind of X-ray vision for every price change you encounter for the rest of your life. Meet Ray. Ray drives a taco truck in Columbus, Ohio. He wakes up every Friday at 4 a.m., fires up the engine, and heads to his regular spot on 5th Avenue. 200 tacos on a good day. 6 years in, he knows his costs cold. Diesel to run the truck, cooking oil, beef, tortillas, paper wraps. This particular Friday feels a little off. He stops at the pump. Diesel is up 40 cents a gallon from Tuesday. Not catastrophic, just weird. He didn't hear about anything. He shrugs, fills up, drives to his spot. By 9 in the morning, his weekly supplier text comes in. The cooking oil invoice is up 15%. His beef supplier leaves a voicemail, expect a delivery fee hike next week. And his paper wraps, the pre-folded ones from a factory in Michigan, are backordered for 2 weeks. Ray calls his cooking oil supplier. What happened? The answer? It's the oil market. Ray says, I sell tacos. What does my cooking oil have to do with oil? The supplier pauses. It's complicated. Ray hangs up. He still has no idea what the Strait of Hormuz is. He wouldn't find out for another week. By Thursday, he's done the math. His weekly ingredient cost is up around 20%. His diesel is higher. His packaging is delayed. He has 2 choices: eat the loss or raise his taco price from $4.50 to $5.50. He hates both. He goes with the raise. The first person to notice is a regular. A guy who's bought the same 2 carnitas tacos every Thursday for 3 years. He looks at the new price, looks at Ray. $5.50? What happened? Ray opens his mouth and honestly doesn't have a good answer. He says, supply chain stuff. The guy pays, walks away a little annoyed, and neither of them is wrong. Neither of them knows what actually happened. Here's what neither Ray nor his customer understands yet. And this is the part that should genuinely surprise you. The reason those tacos cost more started with a tense standoff between military forces in a narrow strip of ocean, 2,500 miles away. Pull up a map. Find Iran. Find the Arabian Peninsula. That's Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait. Now look at the tiny gap between them. That is the Strait of Hormuz, and its narrowest, 21 miles wide, about the same distance as crossing a mid-sized American county. Completely unremarkable looking, except for one thing. Every single day, roughly 1 in every 5 barrels of oil traded on planet Earth passes through that channel. Not 1 in 10, 1 in 5. Saudi oil, UAE oil, Iraqi oil, Kuwaiti oil, all of it funneled through this single gap before it can reach the world. And Iran sits right on the edge of it. Iran has, at multiple moments over the last several decades, threatened to close the strait, usually in response to sanctions or military pressure. They haven't fully shut it down. But here's the fascinating and slightly terrifying thing. They don't have to. The threat alone moves oil markets within minutes. We'll come back to that. First, why does any of this touch a taco truck? Most people hear oil and picture a gas station. A pump, a nozzle, done. Maybe heating oil in the winter. But oil is not just fuel. It is a raw material. It goes into roughly 6,000 everyday products, not as fuel, but as the physical stuff those products are made of. Plastics, synthetic fabrics, fertilizer, pharmaceuticals, pesticides, packaging, the asphalt on the road you're driving, the foam in your couch, the rubber soles of your shoes. Oil isn't just what makes your car go. It is literally woven into the world around you. in forms you'd never guess. Raise cooking oil? Not petroleum directly, but the truck delivering it? Diesel. The plastic jug it ships in? Oil. So, when oil prices jump, everywhere oil is an input. The cost of everything downstream goes with it. This isn't a coincidence. It's math, and it has a name. Now let's walk the chain, step by step. The Strait of Hormuz gets threatened. Traders who buy and sell oil futures, contracts for oil that hasn't been delivered yet, don't wait to see what happens. They price in the risk immediately. The moment a credible threat hits the news, crude oil futures jump, sometimes in the same hour. This is Ripple 1, and it happens before a single barrel has stopped moving. Ripple 2. Every refinery on Earth is now paying more for its raw material. So refined products, diesel, jet fuel, heating oil, the petroleum that becomes plastic, all get more expensive at the source. Factories and shipping companies see their costs go up before they've changed anything they're doing. Ripple 3. Companies that ship things, trucks, planes, cargo ships, burn diesel and jet fuel. Their operating cost just went up. They don't absorb it, they pass it on. Delivery fees go up. Everything you order, everything shipped to a store near you, costs more to move. Ripple 4. Factories using plastic, synthetic materials, or petroleum-based chemicals see their raw material cost go up. They raise prices too. The Michigan factory making Ray's paper wraps, higher cost, 2-week backorder, price hike incoming. Ripple 5. Food. Diesel runs every tractor and every farm truck. Pesticides and herbicides are made from petroleum chemicals. Higher oil means higher farming costs, which means higher cost to grow crops, which means higher cost at the food distributor, which lands on Ray's invoice. And by the time it reaches him, he is somewhere around Ripple 5 or 6. He never touches a barrel of oil. He never sees a pipeline. He sells tacos. And yet, here it is. This is what economists call price transmission. The cost shock from one market, crude oil, travels along the price signals of every connected market downstream, like a shockwave moving through water, quiet and fast, invisible until it's already hit you. And it always ends at the consumer, you and Ray's customers, paying more for things that seem to have nothing to do with anything. Now here's the part I want you to sit with, because it's actually a little wild. Oil doesn't have to actually be cut off for this to happen. The threat is enough. Remember futures markets, traders pricing in risk before anything has actually changed. When a credible disruption threat hits the news, the entire supply chain reprices on anticipation. Not reality, anticipation. Before a single barrel has slowed down. That's not irrational. That's smart trading. If you're a refinery and crude might cost 40% more in 6 weeks, you lock in your supply now at current prices. Everybody does this simultaneously, and that collective smart move drives up prices right now. The signal moves faster than the actual oil does. Always has. Let's talk about the most famous example. 1973, Arab OPEC nations, frustrated with US support for Israel in a war, cut their oil exports. Not a full shutdown, just a cut. And the US felt it almost immediately. Gas prices rose roughly 40% in a matter of months. Lines formed at gas stations, cars stretched around blocks, rationing signs everywhere. And the economy shrank. People lost jobs. A relatively modest supply disruption, half a world away, transmitted itself into every corner of everyday American life. Same mechanism, same chain, and it didn't stop there. The disruptions of the 1970s created something economists had a hard time explaining at the time, because the old models said it couldn't happen. They called it stagflation. Stagnant economic growth combined with high inflation at the same time. Usually those two things move in opposite directions. Not this time, because the inflation wasn't coming from people spending too much. It was coming from the supply side getting hammered. Think about why that matters. If inflation is caused by too much spending, a central bank can raise interest rates. Makes borrowing expensive, people spend less, prices cool down. Standard playbook. But if the inflation is caused by an oil supply shock, Raising interest rates doesn't put oil back in the ground. It doesn't reopen the strait. It just makes everything more expensive and harder to borrow money, both at once. You're fighting fire with a tool that doesn't reach the fire. The Federal Reserve eventually broke the 1970s stagflation, but the cure was brutal. Interest rates were raised to nearly 20%. Mortgages became almost impossible to get. It was like performing surgery with a sledgehammer, all triggered ultimately by disruptions to oil supply, rippling outward through price transmission, landing finally on the checkout line. So the question you should be asking now is, why are we still this vulnerable? Why, 50 years after the 1973 embargo, does one waterway still hold this much power over the global economy? Honestly, good question. And the short answer is that people have been working on it, slowly. The US Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the massive underground oil stockpile stored in salt caverns along the Gulf Coast, was created specifically to cushion this kind of shock. The government can release hundreds of millions of barrels into the market to slow a price spike, buying time while the world adjusts. It exists because of the Strait of Hormuz problem. Beyond that, the world is gradually diversifying. More solar, more wind, more electric vehicles. Each one is a tiny sliver of the global economy that no longer needs to run through that 21-mile gap. Progress is real, but it's slow. And for now, today, this decade, that strait still matters enormously. Back to Ray. By the following week, his prices are set. He's explained supply chain stuff to about 30 confused regulars. He hasn't lost too many customers. People in Columbus still love tacos, and $5.50 isn't unreasonable. But his margins are thinner. His cushion is smaller. The next time something flares up near the Persian Gulf, it'll happen to him again. It'll just arrive on his invoice, and he won't have chosen it. And that's the part of economics most people never learn. The prices you pay aren't random. They aren't a mystery. There's a chain. And if you know how to read it, you stop blaming Ray for the taco price, and you start seeing the actual force that moved it. That's what economics gives you. Not just information, a kind of X-ray vision for the world. So let's name every piece of what just happened. When a sudden, unexpected event disrupts the supply of a critical input, energy, food, raw materials, and sends price ripples through every market that input touches, that's called a supply shock. It doesn't have to shut things down completely. It just has to create enough uncertainty that the whole chain reprices. The mechanism by which that price pain travels, from crude oil to diesel, to delivery fees, to cooking oil, to food, to Ray's taco wrapper, that's price transmission. The cost moves from market to market along supply chains, the way electricity moves along a wire. You don't see it happening, you just see your invoice go up. When enough of those cost increases stack up and show up as rising prices across the board, even while the economy isn't overheating, that's cost-push inflation. Not caused by too much money chasing goods, caused by the supply side getting squeezed. It's the inflation that's hardest to fight, because the standard tools are built for a different kind of problem. 3 terms, 1 chain, 1 taco. 21 miles of water. The next time you're at the gas pump and the price jumps since last week, look it up. There's almost always a reason. A pipeline outage, a refinery fire, a military standoff in the Gulf. The world's price system is always talking. Most people just don't know the language. Ray is still out there, every Friday morning on 5th Avenue. He still doesn't know what the Strait of Hormuz is, but you do. And that changes what you see every time you pay for something. Every price tag is the end of a chain, and now you can read where it started. If this made the world make a little more sense, share it with someone who'd get it. And subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because next time, we're going to look at a company most people think they understand. One whose price tag just made Wall Street gasp. And the question isn't whether that number is crazy. The question is, who decides what anything is worth? And how does that number get set in the first place?